Greetings, everyone, and welcome to episode 76 of Teaching Tales, the podcast totally devoted to sharing stories from the world of education. I am Brent Coley, your host and elementary principal in beautiful Southern California. And joining me today, speaking of beautiful, now we've had episodes before for listeners. You know, I've had a few family members on. I've had my dad, I think it was episode 6. More recently, I had my daughter Megan episode, I don't remember, but I have another family member with me. I have my beautiful wife, Jill. Hi, babe.
Hello.
Thank you. So before we get into the topic today, Jill, first of all, I love you, babe. Tell us about who's Jill?
Well, like you said, I am the wife of Brent Coley. Mm-hmm. I am a mother to 2. Megan is our 19-year-old daughter in her first year of college. And Ben is our 15-year-old son in his first year of high school. And then professionally, I am the director of child and family programs at a local foster care and adoptions agency here in Temecula, International Christian Adoptions. And I'm a social worker, and I have been in social work and specifically child welfare for about 25 years.
Yes, you have extensive background in the field, and we were talking. Kind of this episode came about because we were talking the other night, a week or so ago, just about trauma and trauma-informed practices, and specifically like kids who come with trauma from the foster care system, things like that. And I thought, gosh, you know what? We had such a great conversation, and I remember saying, we should have been recording this. Like, this is what teachers, principals, anyone in education, they need to hear this stuff because it's good stuff. So what I wanted to do is record. Hopefully we can get a great conversation like that again. With the topic being, what is a teacher, principal, assistant principal, anyone in education, what do they need to know about students who may be coming to their schools or their classrooms from the foster care system? Because as a site principal, they're there. They are in every one of our schools, and the numbers, the percentages of those kids, it continues to rise. And we just need to have a better knowledge of how can we best serve those kids. And I've got an expert living in my home, so let's tap into that. So I said, Jill, share with listeners, my mom and dad, if nobody else, what does a teacher need to know? I think you said you came up with five things. So what would number one be?
Well, speaking of numbers, I thought I would share some stats. Just so people are aware that on any given day in our nation, we have about 440,000 children in the foster care system. Right here in California, on an average day, it's about 60,000. And the average age of children that are in foster care is between 7 to 8 years old. So they are school-aged children. And if we look at the numbers, about 60% of the children that are in the system, they are school-aged. They are in school. So like you said, they are definitely in your classrooms. They're on your campuses. There's no doubt about it. So first, I would say it's just really important for educators to know who are those students. Just be aware that they are foster children. Just so they can feel safe on the campus, that they can feel seen, and just cared for and valued, without stigmatizing them, though.
Sure.
Absolutely. Because they're very aware that they're very different than most of the children on campus. They're very aware that they don't have the families like the other kids do. So it's that balance of, knowing that they're there and investing in them and making them feel safe, but at the same time not wanting to stigmatize them. I think some of the important things is to be aware, like for example, like around projects maybe in the classroom that are specifically about families, like Mother's Day comes up, Father's Day, just being aware, and sensitive to the fact that that could be very difficult for those children. Holidays are always really, really difficult for foster children. So just being aware around some of those other things. I have one mother that I've worked with that she was sharing with me the other day that her son that she has now adopted, he shared with her when he first came to live with her how there was one Valentine's Day that he was living in a foster home, and he showed up to school, and he was the kid that had no Valentines to pass out. Everyone else did, but he didn't. Same thing like with special dress up days or cowboy day or whatever. He didn't have a cowboy hat to wear.
No one there to make the costume or to get the hat.
Right. Yeah. So even if, I was thinking that even if like teachers like Valentine's Day, they had like one extra box of Valentines, just in case that kid shows up and doesn't have, so just again, being aware of, those things.
And that could be, if I can, for whether it's a foster child or any kiddo.
Right.
I mean, just having an extra, if you're doing a project or an activity like that, having that backup plan for that student who may come, quote unquote, unprepared for Valentine's or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. There definitely needs to be, some improvement. There's been some improvements with, the collaboration between like child welfare and school districts in just communicating and letting. Child welfare needs to let schools know that that this child's been placed in foster care. They're now being enrolled in your school, and there have been some improvements, but definitely that's an ongoing. We need to see improvements in that area.
Yeah, we especially where we live in California. For anyone listening in California, we know who our English language learners are. Students in our schools, in our classrooms, we know who are students who English is not their primary language, and so that we know what kind of support to provide for those kids needs to be the same type of thing, because much like an English language learner would require some additional supports. A child in foster care system is probably going to require some additional
extra
supports.
Exactly. And I know a lot of times, teachers and principals, you're not finding out sometimes that they're even on your campus until the foster family has shared with you.
Yeah.
And that needs to change. We need to, there needs to, again, be more collaboration where you're finding out even ahead of time. Like I know you were saying, that it's really helpful to know even before that child steps foot on your campus, just to be prepared. So the next thing that I wanted to share that I'm really excited about, and this is what we share with all the families that we're preparing to care for these children, is that just like in the past 10 to 12 years, there has been all kinds of neuroscience research.
I love this.
Yeah, all around.
Turn it up, folks. This is good stuff.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's all around what trauma does to a child's brain. So we now know just the effects of, and when we say trauma, a lot of times we call it toxic stress, adverse childhood experiences. So obviously we're talking about abuse and neglect, abandonment. We're talking about being exposed to drugs and alcohol in utero. So all those things that cause that toxic stress, and it really just derails the natural development of the child's growing brain. And so we know what it does. What happens is that these kids, they get stuck in the flight, fight, or freeze. So they're like constantly in this state of, thinking that there's danger and just scanning for danger. And their brain is in that place. They're stuck where you can imagine, like, what does that do for learning? Like, can they learn when they're stuck there? Children that are afraid have a hard time learning. So what I would say is really important for educators is to be what we call trauma-informed, have trauma-informed classrooms, and just be aware of what does trauma do to a child's brain? What does that look like? Now, the good news is, the exciting news is that there's hope.
Yes.
And that is that the damage can be reversed. So again, there is scientific proof that the damage can be reversed. And the way that it's reversed is all through connections and relationships. So that's really exciting to know that, we literally can change the brain chemistry, change the wiring of the brain by children having safe adults in their life that are connecting with them, just really getting down on their level. There's real specific strategies like eye contact, gentle touch, soft words. There's just all kinds of, there's interventions. The specific intervention we teach our families is called trust-based relational intervention. So again, it's all about relationships and connections. So it's just exciting to think, and teachers and principals, and it's just huge, the role that you can play. And it's just the simple things. It's just really, again, taking that time to see that child, to talk with them, get down on their level, make those connections. And it's just exciting to think that, that over time, like, that can literally repair the trauma, the damage that's been done to the brain.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you and I have talked, it's chapter 2, Power of Relationships, in my book. And you touched on it too. It's the little things. Power of the little things is another thing that I believe in. It doesn't have to be noticing a kid's shoes, noticing, wow, I like that bow in your hair. Like, hey, how'd you do in your soccer game? Little things like that. And for anyone who is listening, or if you know someone who is like, it's just a bunch of fluff, it's overhyped, something like that, what you're saying is there's brain research to show.
Exactly.
It's not fluff. It's science.
It's neuroscience.
It's science.
It's like evidence-based, proven research. And I think we were talking about that. Maybe you can put some links, some resources for people to, so that I would encourage educators. I mean, I know you guys have a full plate, you got a lot going on, but if you can take some time to just become, again, a little bit more trauma informed educators, and just, knowing, just what that modern science, which that research shows. And like I said, it's very exciting. Everyone that learns about it is very excited, to know that we can make a difference.
There's hope. And I will put, if you're listening and you're interested in that, if you go to brentcoley.com on the podcast page, under episode 76, there are some links there that you can check out.
Perfect.
So what else do we need to know?
So the next thing I would say is around behavior, because, we all know that...
there are going to be behaviors typically associated.
These children can be difficult, understandably. Again, I always tell people, well,
look what they've gone through.
Think about what they've been through. So I think it's really important that we reframe behavior so that we don't think of it as
reframe. Yes.
Reframe.
Okay.
So that we don't think of it as like willful disobedience or defiant, or that they're just a bad kid, or they just want to push my buttons. What we want to do is we want to look at that behavior as what we call survival strategies, or very much fear-based behavior. So the behavior, what we like to say is that it's a language of unmet needs. So the behavior it's telling you something, Again, remember, they're in that fight, flight, freeze mode. They're constantly scanning for danger in their world, and all their energy goes into that survival. And again, like I said, fearful children can't learn. They have a hard time focusing on reading and writing and math, and just following the social norms and rules. That's very, very difficult for these kids when they're in the fear mode. Because
social norms, just the word norm sticks out.
Right.
Their normal is not the typical normal for most kids in our classrooms.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. One thing to keep in mind, and this isn't probably as applicable in schools, but isolation as a consequence is really not typically very effective for these kids. Keep in mind that they've been abandoned. There's a lot of abandonment issues already. So just real quick, what we tell parents, and this could apply. Is that, if, for example, if you're going to use, like a lot of people use a timeout, type, what we say is if you're going to do timeout, there needs to be 2 chairs. So you're not leaving the child. You are there with the child.
Building that relationship.
Sitting at their level, eye contact, talking with them, helping them regulate, helping them calm down. So I just wanted to throw that out there because that's really key for these kids.
And I can just say, when at all possible, that you could apply across the board. Not just,
right.
just isolating your bench, you're something like that.
Yeah, step outside the classroom.
Which, and we're not, and I will say for anyone, not advocating no consequences for anything like that. Yeah. It's just that trying to be intentional and what's the purpose of a
Exactly.
We're looking to to teach. We're
right.
looking to curb behavior, to reteach in some cases, and
right. And again, behaviors they're symptoms. They are symptoms of something else going on. And behavior is a language. The other thing, definitely, keep in mind that their biological age is not going to match their developmental age. Which I know as educators, you know that, sometimes it's easy, like, children when they have developmental disabilities, it's like, okay, yeah, we know that it's not going to match. But sometimes, these children, they present as your very typical children, and you would have no idea by like looking at them, or even, talking with them, that there is, just what they've been through, the trauma, but just always keep that in mind that they're not going to be, their biological age isn't going to match up.
He's in 3rd grade, so I'm going to expect him potentially, he should be at a 3rd grade level.
Right. And not just academics, probably
socially as well.
Emotional, definitely social skills, their processing, regulating, all of that, definitely. These kids fall through the cracks a lot because they're not impaired enough to qualify for like special services like IEPs and those kinds of things, but they are impaired enough to not thrive in the classroom and not thrive in schools and not be able to function. So a lot of times they fall through the cracks.
Well, if they're bouncing around.
Right, that was my next point. Exactly.
School to school. They may not necessarily be in one place long enough to get that SST rolling, to get an assessment rolling. Oh, we were just about to do something, and boom, they're gone. And then the process starts all over in the next school, and then boom, they're gone again. So
that was my next point.
Oh, there we go.
They miss a lot of school. A lot of them we find when they're entering the system, they haven't even been attending school. If they were like living on the streets with their parents, or just their parents, they were, just because of the drug and alcohol use, kids they weren't going to school. And then, once they get in the system, transferring a lot, from school to school to school. Just sometimes like just the transferring and then time that gets lost in the registering and records having to be transferred and there's just so many things. But there are stats, there's a research that shows with every move they lose about 4 to 6 months of academic progress.
Ouch. So let's pause for a second. Say that again for anyone.
Okay, so with every move that the child has to make to a new school, they lose about 4 to 6 months of academic progress. So again,
I'm at an elementary level. So for anyone listening, think of where you are, what grade level you of students you work with. You got a 5th grader who's been to 5 different schools. You can do the math to see.
Yeah.
And that's wow.
And the average foster child moves about 5 or more times, like in the throughout the time that they're in foster care.
So 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years.
I have an example of a young child that I just recently placed in a home. So she started kindergarten in one school, and then she moved in the middle of her kindergarten year to a second school. And she finished kinder there and started first there, but then she moved again in the middle of her first grade year. So she now is in her third school, and she's only in first grade.
First grade.
So there's a real live example of that happening. Yeah. And there's also some studies that show a correlation between foster children and the number of school moves, like the more school moves that they make and not graduating from high school. So there's definitely
The chance of not graduating is increasing with every
Yeah. So there's a direct correlation for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. The third thing that I wanted to share, I think I'm on my third thing, is about foster families.
I was that's
Yeah.
amazing because you had not told me, but that was
No.
going to be my question. What can we do? What can we do
Yeah.
to support the foster families?
Yeah. I would say, okay, so the first thing I want to say is just be very kind and compassionate towards them. They get there's a lot of bad rap, a lot of stigma around foster families. The media, always wants to highlight the negative, and movies sometimes don't portray them very positively. I can say with full confidence, being in this field for 25 years, there are
Some of the best
amazing families out there. Just they're superheroes. They are in the trenches working with these difficult children day in and day out. So really they deserve a lot of respect. So don't be quick to judge, just thinking, foster care, they must be doing it for the money. Trust me, there's no money in it. So just as an educator, I would just say, take the time to thank them. Acknowledge, the hard work they're doing. Ask them how they're doing. Ask them what you need to know about the child. Like what can they share? Include them in IEPs, SSTs. Communicate with them. It's like, okay, they're not the legal parent, but they are the parent right now.
They're the ones on the front line. They're the ones
to be involved.
Who know what the triggers are. Who know what the incentives that will motivate the child.
What's working at home.
Yeah.
Right, definitely. Also, I would say collaborate with the other professionals on that child's team. So definitely these children, they need a team of people.
Yeah.
So I would say, reach out to the social worker if you have concerns or you just need to have better insight, better understanding of, sure, there's certain things, confidentiality, that they're not going to be able to share, but there's a lot that they can share.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say, reach out and collaborate.
Awesome.
I guess that was my fourth thing.
Yeah, I thought, okay.
Yeah, so this is my fifth.
Last one?
My fifth one is be ready for heartbreak.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Be prepared to say goodbye, which is...
Because the stats, as you've previously mentioned, chances are...
Right.
They're gonna...
So whether they're moving to a new foster home or they're being reunified with their birth family, or they're going to an adoptive home, which is a good thing.
Which is a good thing.
That the child I was just telling you about that's now in her third, because she's in an adoptive home now, which is a good thing. Unfortunately, she's
one more move.
Right. This is the last one.
That'll be the last one.
So as an educator, you just need to be prepared to feel that heartbreak. It can be very, very frustrating. But you need to know, I just want to encourage educators that you definitely plant seeds and that you do make a difference.
Yeah.
And they will remember you. You can be that teacher that they remember for life, for the rest of their life. They might just look back and remember that, when they think about all the safe adults that were in their life, the ones who really saw them, the ones who really cared, who really took the time to invest, you can be one of those adults. You can be on that list of people.
She was the one that, when I did have to have a timeout, she sat next to me. Mm-hmm. She brought the second chair in. Right. And she talked to me. Right. She asked me how it was going at home.
Right. Yeah. I came to school, and I remember that time I came to school, and it was dress up day, but I didn't have a costume, but she had an extra cowboy hat for me to wear. Just again, it's the small things. It really is the small things. So yes, there's heartache, but you can make a difference, so I wanted to encourage educators that way. I do have one more quick thing, if I can just throw it in there, is that, as you all know, as educators, you are mandated reporters, and you know that. I just want you to know how important, that is. And I want you to know that teachers and principals, you are the first ones to pick up on abuse and neglect. So there's a direct correlation between CPS reports declining drastically during the summertime because kids aren't in school.
There's no one there to...
Right.
Wow.
So they're definitely...
Their advocates are
absent. More than doctors. The educators are the ones who are picking up on abuse and neglect more than any other professional. So I just want to encourage you, to take your being a mandated reporter very seriously, and just know that your role is key in detecting.
Because when you do it, again, as mandated reporters, we know when you suspect, you report. And you're not doing it to get somebody in trouble. You're doing it for the child to make sure that child is protected. And if it turns out to be nothing, great. But if it is something, again, that's CPS.
That's what I always tell people. I have a lot of teachers that will ask me, they'll give me a scenario. Do you think I should call it in? Do you think... I always say yes. Yes,
yep.
Always. If you have any kind of suspicion whatsoever, because it's not your job to be the investigator.
Nope. That's what they get paid for.
Right, exactly. So I would just encourage educators to take that role seriously.
Awesome. Well, babe, this was good.
Yeah, it was good.
This was like the other conversation that we had.
Yeah.
So,
thank you for the opportunity.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Because as you're talking, I'm picturing the students. We have foster kids at our school, and I know anyone who's listening right now, if you're probably picturing those students in your class or those students in your school. And if you're listening right now and you're asking yourself, I'm not sure if I have any, that's nothing. Don't feel bad about that. But I would say if you're a teacher and you're not sure, ask tomorrow, or if you're listening on a weekend, when you go in on Monday, ask, do I have any foster? Again, hopefully the district that you're working in has that team of early
liaison,
intervention and the liaison that is letting you know, hey, you've got someone who's coming in who's in foster care. But if you're not sure, seek that out, because again, those efforts can be that one or one of the few adults in this child's life who can be a stable force, if only, like you said on your last, even if it's for only a month,
just a
or
season,
two, a season, you may be planting that seed that will blossom 10, 15 years later into a strong oak tree that and you may not even get to sit under the shade of that tree, but you had a hand in planting that, so
make a difference. Yep. For sure.
That is awesome. Well, babe, thank you once again.
Thank you.
And for anyone listening, again, if you're interested in some of the links that Jill was talking about on some of the brain research and things like that, again, go to brentcoley.com/podcast, or just click on the podcast page, and I will have the links there under episode 76. And anything else, Jill, that you want to share? No. This is where I typically say, so if anyone wants to connect with you on social media, you're not on the Twitters.
I'm not.
so that's okay. And that's okay. So again, I'm reminded, like Weston Kiechnick. Weston, if you're listening, I love your podcast, by the way. When you and Molly, you say, Molly, where can we find you? And she says, in the drop-off loop at school, or in Target, or at gymnastics practice with the kids. So you're picking up Ben from high school.
At the high school.
At 3:00 in the afternoons, battling traffic there.
Right.
So awesome. Well, thank you, babe. And
thank you.
For those listening, thank you. We appreciate your support. If you got something out of this and you like it, again, tell a friend. It's, this episode more than anything, because I love all the episodes. I believe in all the ones we're recording, but this has a special place in my heart because of who I'm married to, and I know that just this is important, and I think it's an underserved population that people don't they don't know a lot about this, or what can I do. So
Right.
Thanks for listening. If you haven't done so, subscribe. Remember, we're in iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, or you can listen directly on my website at brentcoley.com. Once again, thank you for listening, everyone. Until next time, have a good one.